Hey folks, Aaron here from Aaron's Practical Reviews. Let's compare the Canon 90D and the Canon R6. I know they're completely different types of cameras. Mirrorless versus DSLR. The 90D is also a crop sensor versus the R6, which is full frame. But I think that there's enough curiosity out there because of the fact that they both yield similar results. They can both shoot 4K video. They both are really good at animal and sports photography. So there's enough similarities and interest between the two of them that it's worth making a video. So I'm going to do my best here to compare them and contrast them. So let's start right off the bat with the bodies. Here's the 90D, and there you can see the mirror. Here's the R6, and here you can see no mirror. The sensor is behind this. Size-wise, the R6 is slightly smaller. R6, 2 card slots, SD. 90D, 1 card slot. They both have mic, headphone jack, HDMI, USB, and a remote port. Very similar spots, except the R6 has a USB Type-C charging port, as it has the built-in flash right here, which the R6 does not. It does not have any kind of built-in flash or GPS built in. Okay, both have the joystick. This joystick's slightly lower. That one's up a little bit over here. The dial here, if you notice, the R6 actually is just a dial with the set button, where the 90D has the dial and a little like a D-pad type thing where you can push it and maneuver through the menus that way. Over here you don't have that. You actually have to use the joystick, which is not a problem, just takes a little getting used to. LCD slightly larger, more screen size slightly on the R6 than the 90D, and they're very similar, and they feel fairly similar in your hand until you get up to the top here. Once you go to the top, here's where you'll see some really huge differences. So the 90D has the little LCD there with all your settings in it that you can see. It's got the mode dial on the left with a locking mechanism. Over here it's got the mode dial. The R6 has a mode dial on the right. The R6 also has an additional dial here. So on the R6 you can actually change all 3 settings with dials. You can go your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture, all with dials. Versus on the 90D you have 2 dials, that dial and then this dial back here. However, to change your ISO, push this button right here, the ISO button. The R6 also has a locking button right here. It will lock all your dials from accidentally being spun. Also, a big difference here with the R6 is this multifunction button versus on here it's your autofocus points. You push this on the R6, it's set to the multifunction button inside of your viewfinder, which looks like this, and allows you to make changes inside your viewfinder, so you never have to come out of the viewfinder. A big feature that they've added to the R6 is the in-body image stabilization, the IBIS. So let's take a look here. On the left you'll see the R6 with the IBIS on, and on the right you'll see the 90D, which does not have IBIS, and they will both have the digital IS on. So on the R6 here on the left, you're seeing the IBIS with digital IS engaged, and on the right, you're just seeing the 90D. So another difference between the two cameras is the autofocusing system. The R6 has a newer and improved dual pixel autofocus that is a little bit quicker, locks on a little better. It's just all around better and more responsive. The 90D, however, is a really solid autofocusing system with some decent tracking, especially in live view mode. And for video, here, let me show you the difference here. If you watch this video, you'll see that for the R6, the autofocusing is extremely fast. It's a very smooth and locks on and stays on very smoothly to the subject, and it makes shooting very easy. So the 90D is good. I would say the R6 is great in this capacity. And then for the viewfinder, huge difference. You are locking on to eyes in the viewfinder, the electronic viewfinder of the R6, Whereas on the 90D, you are basically, it's got a face priority mode, but it's not necessarily a lock on. And as you can see here in the viewfinder, it just doesn't function nearly the same. In fact, with the viewfinder on the R6, you can actually switch eyes, change between eyes, change between subjects, and you're getting just a lot better experience with the R6 as far as photography and autofocusing in the viewfinder. Night and day difference. Some of the more advanced features that you'll find here, and some of the larger differences, are going to be in the video modes. For example, the R6 has 4K 60, and it has 1080p at 120 frames a second, which is that slow motion with dual pixel autofocus. So the 90D has 4K 30, 4K 24. They both have 1080p, 60, 24, 30. You know, they have 4K 30, 24 as well. But yeah, so you're adding 4K 60 frames a second, which is a huge file, by the way. And you're adding that 120 frames a second, 1080p 120 frames a second with the dual pixel autofocus, which I've used that a ton on the 90D, the 120 frames a second without the dual pixel autofocus, and I'm still able to get some really good footage. But it really would be nice to have that dual pixel autofocus, because your subject does go out of focus. You got to manually focus. It can be done. It's not nearly as convenient as having the autofocus, obviously. Okay, so another huge feature that we have to talk about is the fact that the R6 has Canon log. So that is huge to me, and that's actually one of the bigger reasons why I bought the R6, because I've never had it before in a camera, and I really wanted to play with it and learn about it and kind of use that to enhance my videos. And just, you know, it's something new, it's neat. So for me, it's a lot of fun. That's really cool. I'm glad the R6 has that. The 90D doesn't. So that's a huge difference. Now, if you haven't noticed in this video, on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see throughout there's been either an R6 or a 90D. I've been interchanging the cameras here with as identical settings as I could get them, and moving it back and forth to give the same look, to see if you could even tell there's a difference in 1080p at 30 frames a second, the image quality. So it's kind of like a test I'm running here to see if anybody noticed. And I'm going to put them side by side here in a second. But as far as the video goes, the R6 definitely has more features, but I haven't found that it's substantially better image quality, although I do believe the R6 is giving me slightly better image quality in 4K, especially at 30 frames a second, and obviously 60 frames a second, because, you know, the 90D doesn't even shoot at 60 frames a second. But I do feel like I'm getting a slight bump in quality in the 4K. Okay, photo mode on these guys. This is a big point of contention for a lot of people here, because the R6 being only 20 megapixels scares a lot of people. I was one of them. I wasn't sure if it was going to be enough for me. And 32.5 megapixels looks really good, especially on paper, compared to the 20 megapixels. So that's another reason why I think a lot of people are looking at the 90D over the R6, or possibly as an alternative to it, which and I'm kind of torn on this. A lot of people love the photos they get from the 90D. I've taken a lot of photos that I love with the 90D. Personally, though, I'm a full frame photographer. I like using full frame, and I don't feel like that the 20 megapixels in the R6 is an issue like I thought it might be. I feel like I can crop it enough. I feel like it's definitely sharp enough. And if I ever needed to print anything, which I've never printed anything very large, I'm sure it would be fine for anything I would print. So let's just get that out of the way. The 20 megapixels is not an issue. And on the flip side, I really didn't see a whole lot of advantage to the 32.5 megapixels in the 90D. You get some really nice photos. It is crop, and it's something about the crop. I just feel like I'm not getting the same. I don't know. It's just different to me. I can't explain it, but to me, the photos just look different. Everything seems different about the crop photos. So One thing to note, the 90D does have a function where you can shoot completely silent. However, you need to keep it in live view mode. Okay, so if you're in live view mode, you can go in. There's a setting there to put it to electronic shutter, and you can actually shoot off in live view mode off the back screen, not through the viewfinder, but off the back screen, completely silent. That's a really nice feature. As far as tracking, I've shown you. I just don't think there's anything close to the R6 in Canon's lineup right now, except for obviously the R5, that can match its tracking abilities for photos and the eye focusing technology. So the R6 is definitely ahead for portrait photography for sure, as far as capturing the eyes. For wildlife, also with the eye tracking animal IF, it tracked everything from birds. It tracked bugs. It'll lock onto a bug's eye if you can get enough of it in frame. Obviously humans. It's got all these cool features for photographers that the 90D doesn't have. Now, the 90D does have eye tracking technology in live view mode, which I've shown, but in the viewfinder you're kind of limited. So, which isn't a huge issue. You can still get fantastic photos with it. I'm just saying, as far as the differences to compare and contrast the two cameras. So, when you look at everything as a whole and all the things that the R6 has to offer, you can see as it starts to add up why there's such a huge price gap. And for some people, it's a no-brainer that they want the R6, and those features are super important to them, right? The 4K 60, the 120 frames a second, slow motion with autofocus, the through the viewfinder, shooting video through the viewfinder, the tracking system of the dual pixel autofocus 2, the IBIS, the dual card slots, there's so many things. I probably forgot some things here. I'm just trying to rattle them off, but you can see how it quickly adds up into that value of being over double the price. But on the flip side, if you don't need any of that extra stuff, then the 90D is an excellent choice as well. So I was using the 90D for all of my video work up till I got the R6, and I thought up to that point it was the best video camera I had owned up to that point. So you can take that for what it's worth. And as far as photos, I did use the 60 Mark II for most of my photos, but that's because I liked full frame. So there's that. And then, you throw on top of that the fact that the R6 is compatible with all of the lenses, all the EF lenses, all the EFS lenses. It automatically goes into crop mode when you put a EFS lens on it, a crop sensor lens. There's just so much involved in with that electronic viewfinder, and they're totally different. But at the end of the day, I think you're getting excellent quality from both. And I think that there's definitely a market for each of them, but I can definitely see why people would be interested in looking at both of them, especially if you could save half the money and go out and buy some amazing lenses for the 90D. So that's it, folks. I know it's a pretty lengthy kind of comparison, but there's a lot to talk about here, and I was trying to cover everything, and I know there's stuff I missed. There always is, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And thank you for watching. If you want to see any samples, go through my videos. I've got samples of tons of samples of the 90D. I'm building a small library of samples from the R6. It's fairly new to me, so I'm working on that. But other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And that's it. Have a fantastic day. Thank you for watching.